Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is now called to order. And I'd like to ask for our city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Thank you very much. Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after that, remain standing for a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's nice to see a full house today. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the May 23rd, 2023 meeting and the agenda of the June 13th, 2023 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. Our first presentation is from the East County Advanced Water Purification Project. And Mark Nemec is going to come up and tell us a little bit about this. Hi, Mark.
Hey, good afternoon. Got it set. That's good. So good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Mark Nemec. I'm the director of the East County Advanced Water Purification Project. And today I wanted to provide you guys with a brief update on how the project's going. But beyond that, beyond the update, I think it's also an opportunity for us to celebrate the success of the project 1 year since the JPA board approved moving into the construction phase of that project. So over the past year, there's been a significant amount of progress made by the JPA and its project partners on implementing this potable reuse project that's going to bring a reliable and local water source to the region. Got quick hands here, sorry. And so before I start into the updates, I want to provide the council with and the mayor with a refresher on the 5 packages that make up the East County AWP project. Package number 1 is all the treatment-related facilities. That's located in the city of Santee, adjacent to Padre Dam's existing raised storage water recycling facility. Package 2 includes the pipeline out to Lake Jennings. It's going to convey that purified water out to Lake Jennings Reservoir, which acts as an environmental buffer prior to Helix Water District, our project partner, taking it out and treating it again. Package 3 is all the wastewater conveyance facilities. That's going to bring all the wastewater up to the headworks at the new facilities. Package 4 is a collaboration with the city of San Diego to move the residuals or the waste byproducts from those facilities, the new facilities, down past the influent pump station of the city of San Diego's Pure Water project. So we're taking those residuals away from their influent and down into their regional system and ultimately to Point Loma. And recently, the board approved package number 5, which contemplates energy recovery, where we're looking to take the gas off the solids handling facility digesters and utilize that gas to run generators for electricity to help offset electrical demands at the facilities. So the good news is we're still on schedule and on budget and generally on target for this project. You'll see here on this screen a number of metrics. I'll highlight a few of them. Over the last year, we've spent over $100 million on the construction of the facilities. And we were able to acquire the East Mission Gorge Pump Station, which is a key facility to move the wastewater up to the new facilities from the city of San Diego. We closed escrow in May of this year. Related to package number 1, all the treatment facilities, we moved in 105,000 cubic yards of soil to help fill in some of that site and as part of mass grading. That number equates to approximately 32 Olympic-sized swimming pools of soil. And we also have poured a little over 10,000 cubic yards of concrete to date. For package number 2, the pipeline, we've installed just over 1,500 linear feet of pipeline as well. And on package number 3, for the wastewater facilities, it includes a horizontal directional drill from the East Mission Gorge Pump Station under the San Diego River and into the Santee Lake side of the alignment, just on the west side of the lakes. It's a trenchless type technology, and you have to do a drill like a bore. It's a 3,500-foot bore. We completed the first one, and we've started the second one. And once that bore is completed, we'll pull pipeline back through that hole between the two access pits. So again, a lot of great activities and progress that's been made on this project. And it's inevitable that on a project of this scale and magnitude that you're going to run into project challenges. Some of the challenges that we faced over the past year are the rain, as you recall, was a pretty wet year with the atmospheric rivers. And that coupled with the fact that we were in the middle of mass grading for the project really impacted the contractor's ability to continue work on in a consistent manner. So you could see there the equipment there as they were moving the dirt around, the soil around, it'd get wet. And so it would rain, and you get a day there or two there, and then it would take at least a week to dry out. And then they'd start work again, then it'd rain again, and it would dry out. So back and forth, but we moved through that. You can also see we had some construction challenges along the way. We have, within East County, as most people who've constructed in East County know that there's a significant amount of rock. The Package 2 contractor utilizes that attachment to their backhoe. It looks like some kind of draconian device, but it rips through the rock pretty nicely. We have our environmental challenges, bird nesting season, fairy shrimp that we're dealing with as well, and other construction challenges such as sinkholes and frac outs on the horizontal directional drill. But the good news is this, that the 5 package leaders have all worked with the design build teams and overcome all these challenges to maintain positive momentum for this project moving forward. So a bit about each of the packages. Package number 1, again, is all the treatment facilities. As you can see on the screen, we've moved through a majority of the mass grading of soil on the site, and there's a lot of concrete being poured. What you see on the left-hand side there is the concrete being poured in the water recycling facility. And for the digesters, at the top right, you'll see the digesters filled with water. We're performing a leak test on that tank right now. And one other feature on Package 1 is there's been a significant number of concrete pours, early morning concrete pours, starting at 4 a.m. because of the different variables that affect concrete pours. And to date, there have been no complaints. So our outreach team is doing a great job of letting the customers know and the residents know about all the work upcoming. On package number 2, that's the pipeline out to Lake Jennings from the facilities. They started their pipeline installation along what we call the flume trail there. If you see the bottom left, you can see the trail that on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little bit of water poking out. That's Lake Jennings. They've started their pipeline there. They've completed that pipeline. They're actually on the way down the hill now. And they're also working right out in front of Santana High School in Santee right now to get some of that work done during the summer session before school's back in session to help minimize traffic issues and congestion. On top there, you'll see some of the tools that they've utilized to help move through the rock subsurface. And then on the far right is a picture of the pipeline for the project. A group of us went down to Imperial Pipeline in Riverside County to see how the pipe was made. And they were actually putting our pipe together while we were there, so it was good education. And we were able to also perform a little quality control while we were there as well, make sure they knew we were watching. Package 3 is all the wastewater conveyance facilities. Top photo in the center, that's the East Mission Gorge Pump Station that was recently purchased from the city of San Diego. And then surrounding that photo are different activities that have occurred on that site. On the left-hand side there, top left, initially we installed casings prior to doing any boring because of the geology in the area. We had to make sure we were in some competent material so that it wouldn't collapse on us. Bottom left, they started the pilot bore drilling. It's like a drill head that they can guide. They know where they're at, and they pop up where they need to. And then in the middle center there, they've started fusing all the HDPE pipelines, so that's going to be pulled back through that borehole. And so they're prepping for that probably around the end of summer. Package 4 is in the design phase, not in the construction phase. That's the pipeline that will take the residuals or the waste byproducts beyond the city of San Diego's influent pump station. 2 photos on the left, you can see work is being started, or we call it pre-construction work. That's where they're doing potholing, geotechnical work, condition assessment. And then Package 5, the most recent project awarded by the JPA Board of Directors, is in its planning stages. We're gathering information to inform the environmental or CEQA document. Top photo is an example of what an engine generator might look like that would utilize that biogas as a fuel. Outreach has been important since day one, and as they move into construction, they've kind of modified what they're looking. The stakeholders are looking at. Right now, we have residents and businesses. We're out in the field. We're not. It's educational, but it's also the impacts, and they've done a great job of doing that, especially as we're ramping up here. And there's a website. And in that at the East County website, there's an interactive map that highlights the areas of construction impact, so residents can get on there and see where impacted areas are, and maybe look for detour routes before they start traveling. And lastly, before I wrap it up, that's the team. Not all the team, but some of the team. And I put this slide up here because it's important to make sure that there's a work-life balance. This is a long project. We're looking to deliver water into Lake Jennings at summer of 2026. So we got about 3 years to go before we're done testing and commissioning and meeting all those regulations. And along the way, we have to have some fun, and we have to make sure we spend time with families and get out and just maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And with that, I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity for providing this update.
Thanks. Nice report. Any questions or comments? Gary?
What's the width of the pipeline going from the Santee Lakes to Lake Jennings?
The diameter of that pipeline?
Yes.
Yeah, so from the treatment facilities out to Lake Jennings, that's a 24-inch diameter steel pipe the whole way.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Steve?
Thanks for the presentation. The big question is, why are we doing this?
Right.
And what could you say to that?
The why is important, and I think what it boils down to is we know we live in a desert where that the water that we rely on comes from hundreds of miles away, and that water is subject to cyclical droughts. We see the cost of importing water going up. There's other water supply challenges. Ultimately, we want to maintain stability in our communities, and we want to preserve the quality of life that we have here in the desert.
And my understanding is the water that comes out of the wastewater treatment facility that goes into Lake Jennings is more pure than the water in Lake Jennings, so we actually have to remineralize and dechlorinate and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, coming out of the treatment facilities, it's a very high quality of water, and minerals are added in. It is chlorinated as it comes out of the facility. That's to meet regulations on viruses, and we have to meet certain removal thresholds. Then prior to going back into Lake Jennings, we have to dechlorinate it. You can imagine kind of like your fish you bring home, right? You just don't want to put them in the tap water because there's chlorine in it, and they're not used to that ecosystem. So we got to remove the chlorine, put it into Lake Jennings, and then in Lake Jennings it's stored. It has to meet certain requirements before Helix Water District can take it out. They'll blend it with imported water, treat it again through their treatment facilities, and then serve it to the customers.
Yeah, this treats about 95% of our wastewater. 5% up in Fletcher Hills because of gravity still goes down to the San Diego wastewater system. But this allows us to control our wastewater costs for the future rather than be subject to other agencies who have bigger projects who have costs associated with those as part of their wastewater treatment. So this really does allow us to control our future in this area, and it's a great project. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, and thank you for your continued support. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great presentation. I mean, you answered all my questions. Fantastic. And to the public, this is going to save residents on their water bills for years to come once this is completed. Water rates are continuing to rise constantly year over year. Treating the water, the sewer charges are going to continue to rise year over year. So this investment in this facility is going to do wonders. And this is very uncommon for municipalities to come together and invest in this type of project. I think there was one in Carlsbad, and we're the only two in San Diego County to do something like this. So I'm very excited for the completion of this project and to secure our water in years to come. Obviously, we know we go through droughts, once every 10 years. And so this is going to ensure that it's going to be a less a lesser impact in the future.
Michelle? Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, our next presentation is about the World of Work Mentorship Program. And if the representatives from the World of Work could please come up to the podium and tell us all about this.
Thank you, Mayor, members, City Council. Mark's a lot taller than I am. Thank you, Mayor, members, City Council. So I'll introduce this item, which is the World of Work Mentorship Program, and it occurred at Bostonia Global High School with the Cajon Valley School District. And as I asked some of the staff members to come down to be able to introduce the item and provide certificates to our mentees that participated, I would like to recognize those three individuals from the district as Board Member Karen Mejia. Thank you. It's okay. Superintendent Dr. David Miyashiro. And then World of Work Coordinator Ms. Julia Cruz Felica. And as I turn it over to Julia now, we will recognize the 11 total participants, 9 of which are here with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. My name is Julia Cruz Felica. I'm the World of Work Coordinator at Bostonia Global High School here in El Cajon. So we want to recognize our students that participated in the mentorship program with Heartland Fire Department. So Carmine Ledbetter Cavallaro, can you come down, Carmine? They're going to have to get out of there. And squeeze on out, Carmine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Carmine, you can stand right here. We're going to take your picture. Yeah. Okay. And then next we have Eduardo Martinez Bastida. Eduardo. Yusuf Habib. Yusuf. We want to recognize James Gill. He's not with us today, but we want to recognize James, so an applause for him. Next here today we have Jordan Nuko. Esmeralda Romero. There she is. Marissa Ramos. Good job, Marissa. All right. We also had 2 students with City of El Cajon in the fleet maintenance department learning from those mentors. So Christopher Vargas Ibarra. Come on, Chris. And Sebastian Cabrera. We had 2 students learning from mentors in the parks and recreation maintenance. We had Noah Gamino. And also not here today, but we do want to recognize Amran Malahaji, who was there with Noah. Congratulations to all of our students. And I do want to also really recognize, first of all, City Manager Graham Mitchell, who thank you for your open-mindedness when we started this idea. And then I would like to thank Mike James so much for all your organizational skills. And we wanted to present to you a banner thanking you. Yes, unveil. So it says you're a community mentorship participant in recognition and appreciation for your contribution to our scholars as they realize their greatest possible future selves, hopefully professionals here in the city of El Cajon. So thank you for that. And then if there's a representative from Heartland, anybody want to come on up for me? Okay, that would be great because we have one for you all as well. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that for you. These are wonderful students who hopefully are your future employees here in the city of El Cajon. So thank you. Yeah, we're going to do a photo. Turn. Good. Sorry, we're going to do a photo op.
That's okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Julia's way too kind. When I hear free labor, it's easy,
It's
right?
not quite like that.
But just so you understand, the Bostonia Global High School program really connects students with real life experience rather than sort of theoretical. And so these students had an opportunity to learn hands-on what it's like to work in a public works yard with the fire department or with the Parks and Rec department. So we got a lot out of it, but we're grateful that we could give a little bit to our students in their educational pursuit. So I want to thank the school district for their vision for this as well.
Thank you so much. And Graham, I had something for you as well. If anybody else is envious of Graham's award here, you can get one. I will be happy to give you one. So. No, I didn't bring any treats, but I wanted to say that as Graham mentioned, we really try to match students and students' interests into areas, and we had such a wonderful time matching them up with mentors. You have amazing employees that are willing to share all their knowledge, and I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty of saying that it is just as beneficial to the students as it is to the employees, because you have employees, especially if they've been doing something for a long time, when they get to suddenly share that with someone new and revisit what it is that perhaps they've been doing for quite some time and maybe seems sort of repetitive, there's this newfound amount of, value to what they're doing. So all of our students really enjoyed themselves.
Would one of the students want to tell us what they got out of it?
Carmine.
Who's the biggest extrovert?
Come on up, Carmine.
Who's the extrovert? Okay,
Come on, Carmine. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carmine David Ledbetter Cavallero. I did my mentorship with Heartland Fire. So my overall goal is to become a firefighter. I'd be down to do it here, but so it was really cool to have this opportunity and, be able, I guess, to experience kind of like, on the job what it'd be like, and I guess get like a head start in my career, and also even just get the opportunity to see if it's like, because maybe, I wouldn't have liked it and I would have got to know that before having to go in that and starting. So, yeah.
Good. Anybody else wants to say
Anybody
something?
else want to talk, or I'll pick a volunteer because I do that. Christopher? Yeah, you knew.
Okay.
So Carmine's interests were, he thinks, perhaps in firefighting, and actually he really enjoyed himself. So Christopher has different interests. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Christopher Vargas Ibarra, and I'm a freshman here, and I went to mentor with the City of El Cajon Fleet Services. And what a goal was in mind for me is to learn on how these vehicles work and how they fix them, because I usually don't see broken police cars or firefighters, so I want to see how they actually work, what they do, the procedures, and I've learned so much, and I had so much fun with the City of El Cajon.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any other questions for the students?
Questions? No, but thank you. I hope we do it again next year.
Oh, yes, we will be doing that again next year, right? Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes to the agenda. However, I do want to note that we have some revised MOUs between the City of El Cajon and the El Cajon Municipal Employees Association and between the City of El Cajon and the El Cajon Mid-Management and Professionals Employee Group. There are some revised tables that were provided to the City Council that are currently on your dais.
Thank you. Council, any changes? All right, that brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? I actually want to pull one. Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about 13. Just what will these grant funds be used for?
So these grants are being divided between the police department and the fire department. For the police department, they're receiving the smaller amount that would be used for some ARGIS live 911 training, and the chief can answer more questions about that. It would also help with some force entry tactical training and the use of our unmanned aircraft systems. So some training in that area. And then the fire department, also more training, some confined space rescue technical support, rope rescue techniques, some of those things like that. So for the majority, these funds would be used for some training purposes.
All right, that's fine. That's enough for me. Staff, do you have any consent items that you wish to pull?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion then to approve the consent items. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, that brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
We have no speaker card, sir.
Oh, okay. There are no written communications on today's agenda. And that brings us to public hearings. We have one item to consider. Item 1 is for fiscal year 23-24 City Housing Authority and successor agency budgets. I'll ask staff to tell us about this item. Hello, Clay.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Clay Shane. I'm the Finance Director for the City of El Cajon. Very pleased to be here with you today to present our preliminary FY24 annual budget. Today's presentation will include a brief overview of the budget process, briefly touch on the economy, provide a budget overview as well as highlights, discuss general fund detail, as well as a summary of the wastewater fund and other city funds, as well as answer any questions or comments that the City Council has. At the end of our presentation, I will show this slide again. I was very happy to get the document to a point where we were comfortable presenting it to the City Council with the option of adopting it if it so pleases the Council today. I will go through those at the end of the presentation. On the budget process, really starts with the 5-year business plan. Work on this 5-year projection starts in the fall of each year, and we begin to take a very long view of the economy and other influences in the environment. That, in conjunction with the City Council goals and priorities, we issue direction to the departments, and the departments submit their annual requests for the following year. With that information, the City Manager's Office and the Finance Department reviews, compiles, and balances these requests and submits to the City Council for adoption. This is for the budget that takes effect July 1st. We were just here a few weeks ago discussing the mid-year report, and frankly, not a lot has changed with some of our economic data we work with. GDP remains, they have not altered the first quarter estimates for 2023. GDP remains at approximately 1.1%. Unemployment is solid, both in the San Diego region and nationally. Unemployment's about 3.5%, with the statewide rate a little bit higher, about 4.5%. Housing has a couple of conflicting data points, first of which is housing permits are down, but sales are up. And I think this probably speaks more to where we are in the relationship between supply and demand rather than the overall influence of the economy. If both were up, that would be positive. Both were down, that would be negative. But I think this just speaks to the housing cycle. Most significant, though, are the inflation numbers that we just saw released in May for the 12 months ending in April. The 2 preceding calendar years, inflation exceeded 6% in 21 and 22. However, the 12 months ended in April of 2023, inflation is now at 4.9%. Still kind of high, but it's a movement in the right direction, which is encouraging. With that, we'll jump into the fun stuff. I'd like to introduce Autumn Rehberger, Senior Management Analyst in the Finance Department, who will get us started.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Autumn Rehberger. I'm the Senior Management Analyst in the Finance Department. I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of the proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24 and highlight some of the general fund budget details. In this graph, you can see a breakdown of the proposed $248 million spending plan across all funds. We'll go into more details on other funds further in this presentation. A copy of our budget document is available online on the city's website. You can go directly to the www.elcajon.gov/budget and reach the budget page quickly to review the proposed budget here as well as previous year budgets. For the fiscal 24 budget, continues to be more of the same routine business as in prior years, with a few items to highlight. The first is the new system. We've talked about this a couple of times before. We just went live with the new system in July. So we're still learning and testing the functionalities, but we are confident that the efficiencies will continue to improve as we become more familiar with the system. Multi-year funds was a new functionality from this new system. We didn't have this before. This is where once the council approves a budget, it stays with that fund or program, if you will, for the life of that project or funding, whatever that source is. Currently, we have 4 multi-year funds. Those are grants, projects, the American Rescue Plan Act, and fleet replacement. We do have the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA. Approximately 2/3 of the funds remain unexpended going into fiscal year 24 from those ARPA funds we received. We do continue to have the overhire of 10 police officers using reserve funding. And we have the additional CalPERS contributions. In the proposed budget, it includes an additional contribution of $4.5 million, as had been discussed in the mid-year report. This graph shows the full-time equivalent and fully funded positions across all funds for fiscal 24. You can see that 62% of our workforce is public safety related. There is a net increase of one position from fiscal year 23 to fiscal 24's FTEs. This graph represents a year-over-year change in staffing over the last 10 years. You can see a decrease in the size of the city's workforce. Looking at fiscal year 23, these are the general fund expected or estimated results. The data is updated from what was presented at the mid-year report so that it includes the approved additional CalPERS contribution. You can see the revenue increase, which was primarily due to sales tax, and the expenditure savings that's projected is due to vacancy savings in the police department, as well as material supplies and service savings in public works. Looking at the fiscal year 24 general fund overview, we're going to go into some more details on each of the revenues and expenditures, but you'll see we're looking at an ending fund balance of $63 million. For the proposed 24 general fund revenues, we can see the significant contributions in sales tax and property tax. They represent 3/4 of all of our revenues. Just to note, the Prop J expires March 31st of 2029, and you can see that is a large portion of the revenue that we'll miss when that sunsets. It's a lot on this slide, so I'm not going to list all of it, but these are the expected or the proposed 24 revenues. Our sales tax consultant is predicting a flattening of sales taxes, which is why you can see that there's not much movement in there. We do continue to expect to see property tax growth, and we do expect moderate growth in all other revenue categories as well. The bottom line, if you look down the right-hand column, the increase or decrease in the totals, this results in only a 2.3% increase from the fiscal 23 estimated actuals. So we're not looking at anything large, unfortunately. Proposed fiscal 24 general fund expenditures. We can see here the commitment to public safety maintains a primary focus, as 72% of our expenditure budget is related to police and fire functions. We have a total general fund expenditure of just under $100 million. This is more of a breakdown of that same general fund expenditures that are proposed. You can see there's a redistribution in almost all functions, with a slight increase to expenditures only in police and fire. With that, I'll turn it back over to Clay to discuss all the other funds and finish it up.
One thing just to close the door on, thank you, Autumn. One thing to close the door on this slide before we move on, just wanted to highlight the expenditure growth in the general fund is $1.1 million year to year. Our wastewater fund is expected to start fiscal year 24 with a budgetary fund balance of approximately $43.2 million. During the course of the year, we expect to collect an additional $35 million in revenue with an expenditure budget of $40.8 million. One of the reasons you see that what appears to be an out of balance between the two is in this particular fund type, CIP activity is included in the fund totals. So you see the multi-year nature of CIPs expressed there in the expenditures, why they're out of balance with revenues a little bit. Taken all together, we're expecting a budgetary fund balance, ending balance of $37.4 million. The city operates a number of special revenue funds. These are funds that have a dedicated revenue source that are restricted in purpose. Presented here are the top 5 non-grant special revenue funds, the largest of which is the American Rescue Plan. We anticipate carrying approximately $22.7 million in appropriations into the new year, followed by $3.7 million in the Gas Tax Fund, $3.3 in the Low and Modified Housing Projects Fund, approximately $1 million in both the Magnolia Performing Arts Center and the Recreation Special Programs funds. Our sole debt service fund, which is a fund type to collect the monies for debt service payment, is appropriated, or we request appropriations of approximately $9.1 million. City also operates a number of internal service funds. These are funds whose primary customer is other city departments and funds. Run through them super quickly. Vehicle maintenance fund, $2.3 million. Vehicle replacement, $1.4 million. Self-insurance, $3.4 million. Workers' compensation, $2.6 million. IT services fund, $4.5 million. IT has a similar situation as the wastewater fund, where some of that activity are projects that were started in previous years carrying forward. And the other post-employment benefit fund of approximately $1 million. Our CIP program does not have any new projects proposed in the adopted budget. Currently, we have 53 open projects on the books with a total combined project budget of just shy of $90 million. While we don't have any new projects proposed here, we do anticipate by first quarter bringing some to the council for adoption. Included as an additional recommendation following our discussion at mid-year about the use of general fund reserves, we've proposed a separate action of transferring approximately $5 million from general fund reserves to the CIP program for future projects. And with that, these are our proposed actions if the City Council chooses to adopt the budget today. It is the preference of the City Attorney to adopt each one of these individually. And number 4, treated as a separate action, is the appropriation and transfer of the $5 million of reserves. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Michelle?
Thank you, Clay. It was a great report. We're transferring $5 million to CIP, and that's the capital improvement projects, correct?
That's correct.
And then were we also transferring $5 million to pay down the retirement?
Yes, ma'am. That was part of our mid-year report that has already been appropriated and transferred to CalPERS.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that those were two separate things.
Two separate things, yes, ma'am.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned that there are no new projects in this budget, but you may bring some in the first quarter. Does that imply that you're going to amend the budget in the first quarter?
We typically do. There's a number of routine business we conduct in the first quarter. Any of those items, routine items usually, that miss the cutoff to make it into this budget document that need to carry over. It's usually things like we ordered a product that we expected to receive sometime before the end of the year, but it doesn't come in until mid-July. We'll need to amend appropriations for that, things like that. And while we didn't include new projects here, a lot of that was to facilitate the transition with the new system. There are a number of routine CIP projects that invariably will need to proceed, slurry sealing, overlay, things like that.
And do you expect that to be a material change to the budget? You know, more than 2 or 3%?
I would say it would be zero impact to the general fund, most likely. I would anticipate any projects added at that time would be from restricted sources, either transportation funding or the $5 million that are proposed as recommendation number 4.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
It's my understanding from the staff report, we overperformed with regard to sales tax. And on top of that, our expenditures were lower than anticipated.
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a balanced budget. I think that's fantastic. That's what we need. And we're in your report, I think it said we're still bracing for impact for an economic downturn. And the sales tax consultant is saying that we're not going to retain as much as we could have in past years.
I don't think you'll find any economists that'll actually put their money on the table and say it will happen, but it does seem like there's a lot of suggestion that we are on the teetering edge of a recession. However, there are some positive indications that may not be the case. You know, the change in inflation over the last few months is definitely a positive indication that things are moving in the right direction. But the city of El Cajon has very healthy reserves that I'm confident we'll be able to weather any downturn should it occur.
Wonderful. And one more question. 53 capital improvement projects, is that a heavy load? Is that a lot for a city? I'm assuming it is. It seems like we need to get some off of our plate before we start more. Does that sound about right? Or
that's kind of hard to say because what comprises those 53 really tells a big story. You know, you could have a small number of very big projects and you can have a large number of small projects. I wouldn't say that number of projects is significantly different than, I would say, an average year. And the other part of that is I describe those as open projects. There's probably some in that list, a number of them I'm certain, that are very, very close to completion, that should we look at that again in just maybe weeks, you know, that list may be smaller.
Got it. Okay.
Things wrap up.
But as you recall, some of those projects are some ARPA-funded projects, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to include as part of the City Council action plan is focusing on those, because if we don't get those done, those are monies that go away. And so that is included in those 53 and are high priority.
Would there be a delay in implementing new capital improvement projects because we're kind of holding off? Or I'm assuming that there's no shortage of projects we can do. So
it's more of a prioritization. How do we prioritize?
Okay. And then the only other thing I'll make a note of is I know that I've spoken about Station 8 and funding for them, and I think the last step we took was to get more staff there was we're doing a report, a standard of care with regard to the whole city, a study. Do we know where we're at with regard to that, so we can make some decisions with regard to fire?
So the study is underway that looks at the coverage of care. That will help dictate whether some capital improvement is needed at Station 8. But there is one project, Station 7 is currently in that capital improvement project list. As you know, that's an older station, 60 years old actually. And the rest of the Prop O money is going to be used for a rehab. And we'll be bringing actually a project, an RFP to the council on that soon, some bidding documents for that. So we are hopefully by the end of summer going to be finishing the study. I'm looking to the chief right now, and he's nodding tentatively yes that we'll have that coverage study by the end of the summer, and we'll present that early fall.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's a priority for myself. We overhired for police officers, and I know Station 8 has been very, very busy, mutual aid, so that's another priority. So if we can quicken the study, that'd be great.
One other comment related to that is Station 7 and the Station 7 remodel. The primary funding source for that is Prop O, which was an additional sales tax measure that was restricted for the improvement of public safety facilities, and that's the last of the facilities that haven't had a facelift in association with that revenue source.
Station 7 is up on Fletcher Parkway, is that right? I've seen them back the fire truck into there, and that's like the space shuttle when you're docking, and it's insane. So long overdue, yeah.
And I agree with Mr. Ortiz, because the nurse navigation, which we're going to hear about next, I think isn't quite where we thought it would be to reduce the load on some of our calls. So yes, I agree that report can't come soon enough, but we want it to be right. So I'm also glad to see, I think we reclassed one position in the police department to a parking enforcement officer. which is good because we had a little over 2,000 parking violation notices last year, and that's a lot for somebody who's perhaps a sworn officer. I don't know who handles those. But if that's a non-sworn officer, that would be a great use of resources because we see semi-trucks parked along Broadway, along Main Street, along our thoroughfares, and they block views of cars trying to get out of those shopping centers. It's a danger. So I'm in favor of this kind of enforcement for safety reasons. And then PERS, our PERS contributions, perhaps we were lucky, perhaps we were fortuitous. I'd like to think that you were extremely smart in the timing of when that happened because interest rates took off after we had issued our pension bonds. And so I would bet our savings are even much higher. Would you say that we need to wait for CalPERS maybe till they come out with their adjustments and then we can redo the model to see, hey, our savings, we got lucky, fortuitous, or you are really smart?
Well, well, I would hate to disagree with you, council member. I really don't want to
prognosticate.
No, I know. It's just the prospect of trying to anticipate how CalPERS finishes the year in investment returns is a dangerous proposition. So I think what I can report on and safely say is that rates are up and the rate of returns we're seeing on our city investments are considerably higher than I've seen them in a decade. So I think that bodes well for investments in general.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anybody else? A quick question about the American Rescue Plan. I see we're spending $3.8 million of that on business assistance programs. Is that all of the money that's left in the American Rescue Plan funds, or is there other dollars?
Of the original $30 million or so, we have approximately $23 million of ARPA activity carrying into FY24. I believe the majority of that is tied up in capital projects being funded by that.
And a lot of that is, those are projects that are underway. So there's a long lead time to go through the federal procurement. There's about $5 million that we kind of set aside for some economic development purpose. So that has a little bit more flexibility. So if a project does come up that the council wants to tackle and it's ARPA eligible, that's a potential source.
There's no expiration date on these funds?
There's an expiration date. In fact, we have to spend by the end of 2024. So with a commitment to be pretty far along. So this next year is pretty critical for completing projects.
Okay. I'm going to ask, for workers' comp insurance, I just seemed like an awfully high number. It was like $2.5 million that we're spending on workers' comp. Is there any advantage to self-insuring on something like that?
We do self-insure on workers' comp. That money you see there is basically an anticipation of the administrative chores associated with the execution of that program, as well as, frankly, an estimate of possible claims. Typically, we don't expend that full amount, but we are self-insured.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. So that's kind of a worst-case scenario. At the end of the year, we have some of that retained?
Yeah, and yes, in fact, I would say the vast majority of that probably will fall to that fund's reserves for any future liabilities.
What are the real costs associated with this in general?
With workers' comp?
Yeah.
I mean, so we are self-insured, as Clay indicated. We use a third-party vendor to help navigate the process. So there are some fees associated with that, but it's just paying out workers' comp claims, which can be a variety of, some very small, some on the larger side. As Clay indicated, we do an actuary, so we know how much should be in that based on claims history. And it's an extra reserve fund, so it's better to have a reserve fund for workers' comp than you tapping the general fund or your reserve fund every single year. But this is the amount that the actuarial says that this is how much you should set aside in the event of.
I guess my question is, on an average year, how much do we have left over?
I don't know how much we have in our current...
We could talk about it later. I'm just curious. It doesn't really have much bearing on the budget.
And it is it's a pretty wide swinging variable number from year to year, so it's hard to say how much there is.
So there's no close average.
I can tell you we have, if I'm reading this right, a little under, I want to say a little under $2 million in the reserves, but I could be off on that, Mr. Shane.
Okay.
It's on page 28.
We had expenditures in 21 in the workers' comp fund of 1.4 million, 1.7 in 2022, and we're anticipating just shy of 1.9 in 23.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Thanks so much. Any more questions for Clay? Clay, thanks for a very comprehensive report on the budget. We appreciate all the hard work that you and your team have done on this. Thank you. Okay. All right, the public hearing is now open. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
Then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I'd like someone to proceed with the individual motions.
I'll go ahead and move that we approve staff recommendation number 1 as written. Does that work?
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Steve, you want to continue?
Sure, why not? I'll move that we approve the staff recommendation number 2 as presented in the agenda report in today's presentation.
Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And I'll move that we approve staff recommendation number 3 as presented in the agenda report in today's presentation.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And finally, I'll move that we approve staff recommendation number 4 as presented in the agenda report and presentation today.
Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. We have one administrative report on today's agenda. Item 16 is an update on the Nurse Navigator program, and I will ask our staff to tell us about this. Hi, Chief. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Ben Coe. I'm the Fire Chief for Heartland Fire and Rescue. And with me is Division Chief Brian Hayward. He's responsible for our administrative and EMS division. And I am here this afternoon to provide a brief update on El Cajon Community Care. So as a quick recap, in March of 2022, the El Cajon City Council approved spending $300,000 to implement a new nurse navigation pilot program in the city of El Cajon. The El Cajon Community Care Program, or the Nurse Navigator Program, began on January 31st this year and has now navigated over 280 patients as of this Monday. The El Cajon Community Care Program provides callers with the right level of care for their medical condition. Next slide. So this slide breaks down the different outcomes for the callers who have access to El Cajon Community Care. Out of the specific areas where callers were referred to for alternate medical care, there are further broken down by 40% of those calls that were navigated for alternate care went to medical clinics, 37% went to mobile urgent care clinics, and 23% went to virtual care. One of the things that we have been doing since the program has been now live for a little over 4 months is we try to make sure that we're managing it and try to make it as effective and as proficient as possible. And so on this slide, as you can see, there's the yellow slice that says BLS, or Basic Life Support, 9%. Initially, when the program started, we did not differentiate between different levels of BLS level calls. So after March, we broke it down more specifically, BLS 1 through 5 level calls and BLS 0 level calls. So the BLS 0 level calls, those are more urgent. We have a basic life support ambulance come out and still transport the patient to the hospital, but it's not lights and sirens. The BLS 1 through 5 level calls, those are calls that the patients can wait based on what their medical condition is. So from 1 to 5 hours, they can wait before the ambulance shows up and provides them with a ride to the hospital. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the trend for calls by each week since January 31st, and the trend corresponds to overall calls for services trend. So pretty much it's mirroring what was happening as far as the 911 calls were coming in. Next slide, please. This slide, or this graph, represents the time of day when the calls were coming in. And once again, it is corresponding to the rest of the 911 calls coming in at the time. Next slide, please. So as part of the program, Access to Care, who is the vendor who's providing this program, conducts voluntary follow-up caller satisfaction surveys. The caller satisfaction survey rating for El Cajon Community Care is currently 4.8 out of 5, which is people who follow up with the survey, they are really happy to have had this service. And so we're hitting the mark. In early April, in an effort to have a better understanding of why callers are accessing 911 for these lower acuity medical problems, we added additional questions to the survey. And so this slide provides the answers why El Cajon specific callers are accessing 911. And as you can see, 54% of the people who accessed nurse navigation through 911, they perceived it was a life-threatening emergency. And 23% didn't know what else to do to get help, and another 23% had no other transportation options available. Now, one of the challenges with this data right now is, like I said, we're only 4 months into it, so we have a pretty small sample size. And this concludes our brief presentation, and we're available for any additional questions you might have.
Questions?
Hi, Chief. Thanks for the information. So is the number of calls low because most people did not want to be transferred to the nurse triage service, El Cajon Community Care?
Not necessarily. Right now, we started off really conservatively. So we're still looking at some of the opportunities to go after some of the other calls. This is a pilot program, and so there's a lot of scrutiny from the county, from the state, and we did not want to take any chances. We want to make sure we get it right. We don't want anybody who truly needs help fall through the cracks. And if we go back to the slide that showed, there are some calls that went back to advanced life support. But so we scrutinize really heavily at the medical directors who are behind our program. They agree to what we're doing right now, that's the best practice. As we're moving forward, we're looking at different opportunities, looking at different areas where we're trying to capture some more people to be part of the program. One of the things that we did was we worked in collaboration, partnership with the city's communications manager, Chris Berg, who did a sit-along with our dispatchers, looking at the messaging, how we're addressing the callers who are coming in or requesting assistance, and trying to make sure that we have good precise messaging and try to provide the best information to the callers to access it. It's kind of a slippery slope. We don't want to market it on the front side. We don't want people to start calling 911 because just that's what they think that's going to get them the quickest care. But we do want to get the right level of care for the people who call and who don't know what else to do. And so when we started the program, the intent was to provide the best care to our community and citizens, and I believe, based on what we're seeing, we're on the right path.
Okay, thank you.
Out of the 54% of the calls that were perceived as emergencies, how many of those were actually emergencies?
If we go back to the slide, the graph, please. So truly, the true emergencies were only the ALS level calls, so 4%.
So true emergencies were only 4% out of that 54%?
Correct.
Okay, so...
Is it out of the 54 or the 200 calls?
It's out of the 280 calls.
Okay.
But so this is, as far as the survey questions goes, there's only so many people who call back.
Right.
And so I don't have the exact number, how many people out of the survey results.
Okay, so we had 54% were perceived as emergencies.
Correct.
Out of the entire sampling, 4% were actual emergencies.
Correct.
Okay, and then, so I guess what I'm thinking is that, so I see that BLS took up some of the other calls. They were part of the didn't know what to do or had no other transportation, correct?
Correct. And also, so one of the things that happened, since we were the first ones out of the 25 programs who provided the follow-up questions to the patient survey, the vendor Access to Care liked those questions. So in April, they expanded the same questions to the rest of their programs to just get a bigger sample size. So their sample size ended up being about 340 callers, and in many ways it was trending the same as our surveys. However, the percentage of people who perceived it was a true medical emergency, that segment came down.
Okay, so maybe education, which I think you guys are working on. Two, and it's not something that we can talk about right now, but I mean maybe finding other methods of transportation where we have, a segment of population that they have no other transportation. You can't really, if you've got a major migraine or you've got a dislocated shoulder, it's not necessarily an emergency, but I mean, it definitely interrupts your life. And if you had to take the bus to the hospital, that's kind of a drag, to be frank about it. So that's something that, Graham, you and I had talked about on the ride sharing. We need to probably come up with working with other agencies and coming up with something that can be made available to the population so that we are keeping our ambulances for those emergencies. For example, my neighbor had a stroke, and I think it was 10, 15 minutes before ALS could get there, and they had to come from Sequan. But we have, what is the number 19?
Into 19 from San Miguel?
San Miguel, sorry.
Yes.
Couldn't think. San Miguel was apparently not available because they're just around the corner. They're about a block and a half from us. And so, in that situation, someone who had a stroke and had to wait 10, 15 minutes, as anybody who knows, that 10, 15 minutes can mean the difference between being able to survive the stroke, he had other issues, or not surviving that stroke as it goes along. So I would hope that we can, maybe work together and come up with different solutions on how to get the public to the. I know that we're not the babysitters of the community, but in a way we need to be able to provide some sort of help on that so that we take the pressure off you guys and take it off the ambulances, and we're not running our having to come up with what we had like in the 80s when we had calls going out to the different ambulance companies and they're saying, okay, we can be there in 5 minutes or we can be there in 8 minutes, and you may be clear across town, and as an EMT you're always running to try and catch that next call. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Mitchell, as a reminder, we do have that. What we talked about yesterday was a little bit different, but as part of the El Cajon Community Care Program, there is the ability to transport somebody outside of an ambulance with a ride share service. So that is part of the options that is available. And as a reminder, San Miguel did respond to that house, and in 3.5 minutes, it was the transportation that took up to 10 to 15 minutes. So I just wanted to clarify that people that are having strokes are not waiting 15 minutes for someone to show up.
No. And he is correct. The fire engine was there, and they did perform the necessary measures that needed to be done. And I apologize. I did not mean to say that nobody was there.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify something. When Councilmember Mitchell was talking about a migraine headache, for example, we have the options to go with a BLS transport, don't we?
Correct. So there's a couple different options. There's the BLS option, or if the call is eligible for nurse navigation, if it goes through emergency medical call triaging and it's decided that it's eligible for nurse navigation, the options are either BLS transport, there's a rideshare component, or if it later on, as the questioning happens with the nurse or the nurse determines that it is a higher level care that's needed, we can bump it back up to advanced life support.
Okay. Phil.
A couple questions. When the call is determined to be BLS non-emergency, is that our paramedic boxes responding, or are we calling other ambulance companies to service that?
So the BLS 1 through 5 criteria, nurse navigation program from Access to Care, they call directly to AMR, and AMR then manages that aspect. So it does not impact our 911 dispatching.
Okay, and it wouldn't impact our AMR staff either. Are they actually responding, or are we getting another ambulance company to do the non-emergency? So does that make sense?
Yes, it would be right now AMR who's going to be responding, a BLS unit. However, they're managing it and they're figuring it out. It's not going to be an emergency response.
Okay, fantastic. I don't want to take our resources away for a BLS non-emergency. So, okay,
correct.
Fantastic. Maybe this might be a question that we could ask the organization that's staffing the nurse navigation program, but I know we're not the only city in America doing this, so maybe I don't know if you have this data, but how are our results comparing to other cities' results with regard to being able to divert calls to other non-911 emergency responses? Do we know that, or?
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have qualitative data.
Yeah.
However, the anecdotal data, when we've been having our operational meetings with Access to Care, they have assured us that we're actually doing better than the other 24 programs.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. And I guess my only last question would be, what does success look like? It seems like success would be, in my view, getting the AL sent to ALS to 0, and everything else increasing in numbers, BLS and self-care and all. Is that what success looks like, or am I totally off?
No, I believe you're correct. However, the ALS segment there, the slice, there's going to be an ALS component there, and it really shows that the program is working.
Okay.
Because we're catching the ones that otherwise might fall through the cracks. That means that somebody, because we were not able to do an assessment over the phone.
Got it.
And so it's based on what the callers are providing us, the information.
Got it.
And so when we get people, we get to a point where there's a little more drilling down, figuring out what's going on, and it's recognized that, no, this is actually more of a more serious emergency.
Got it.
And sending an ALS unit, that's actually a win for us.
Okay, as opposed to not, through the line of questioning, not recognizing that it's an actual emergency and then saying, well, no, you're fine, and then turns out it was, I got it. Okay, so there's always going to be an ALS component. Understood. Thank you very much, Chief. I got to just commend you because not only do you have to, and your staff and everybody, you have to manage taking all these calls, 16,000 calls, but then also try and onboard a new program and be perfect. I mean, everyone, the public expects you to be perfect. That's a heavy task. So thank you very much for the extra effort. It does not go unnoticed.
And thank you, sir. And this is a team effort. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without the council support, with the city manager's office support, and with the team that we have here, have our labor group and my staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I get a sense that we still need some education in the community about when to call 911, both on the police side and on the fire side. Do we have any plans to do that in non-electronic form? I mean, somebody isn't good on the internet, they don't watch social media, they don't check their email. Is there another method that we're using to reach people about when to call 911?
We haven't. We should probably analyze that. We also know that very few people read our magazine either, right? So, I mean, I'm not quite sure a card would do it either. So we can explore that from a marketing perspective, how to do that. I don't know how one city in a sea of hundreds of millions of Americans can shift the immense marketing that 911 has done over the decades. That's my concern is I don't know if we're that different than other communities, and how we can crack that nut, I'm not quite sure. I think we need to continue to try, but I don't know if I don't know if we're gonna get to that point ever.
I'll just then be specific. I'd like you to check out Every Door Direct Mail for 20 cents a mail piece. You can reach every home in El Cajon for $7,000. And it's a standalone. You can have it up to 11 by 17, full color, two-sided. It could be printed in any language. Most people do look at a solo mail piece. Most people probably aren't going to read a multi-page mail piece. So
I don't disagree that we should try every effort. I probably disagree that everyone will read this. Most of it goes straight to the mail. At least the anecdotal evidence that we have as we've done some polling or understanding about how people get their news. Because we've done these in the past, and very few people respond to that, even that single piece mail. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but
I think I believe the staff is creative enough to turn this thing into something you would put on the fridge, because it's got other info on there like non-emergency numbers and all sorts of other useful information like recreation telephone numbers. Yeah. There's a way to add value to a mail piece that people use it for different things, and I'd like you to dig harder.
Okay, anybody else? Michelle, did you have some? No. Okay, thanks, Chief. Appreciate all the effort from everybody in the department. And
thank you, sir.
I think it's going well. I think it's going to get better with time.
Thank you.
All right, my item 17 is activity reports for myself as reported, and Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
As reported, as you know, I'm part of the MTS group, and there is a strike still going on. It is affecting mostly South Bay, but it is reaching a little bit into East County. There's no end in sight at this point. The Teamsters Union rejected the best and final offer from the vendor. This is not something the MTS management can control because it's a contractor and their employees, so we can't legally get involved and do anything. But it is inconveniencing our writers, and I'm very aware of it. We hear from them, and we know it.
You have a new position at MTS, don't you?
I do. I am honored to be selected the vice chair.
Congratulations. That's a great thing for the city of El Cajon. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Ortiz.
I did not attend the tour with Chelsea Developer Company. Everything else is as reported.
Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported, with an addition, I attended the pitch of our homeless town halls at the PTA/PTO with the school board this morning, along with Mr. Ortiz.
Yes, I added. Please add that to the record. Thank you.
Item 22 is a joint report from Councilmember Ortiz and myself, and I'll let Councilmember Ortiz handle this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city of San Diego is actually voting on this today, and it's an ordinance that would restrict camping within the city. And I would like to direct our staff to analyze this ordinance with regard to what exactly it entails, enforcement measures, the legality of it. I know that we have a no camping policy as well in the city of El Cajon, but since there's other cities jumping on board with regard to our policies, seemingly to mirror it, I felt it necessary that if they're doing something that we're not, looking into it and adopting some policies that might make sense would be ensure that we keep to our city council goals with regard to not only permanent housing but integrity of our neighborhoods. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you had anything to add with regard to that.
No, just the ask would be that we send it to the staff to analyze it, and I'll make a motion that we send it to the staff to analyze the ordinance to see if there's anything we can glean from it.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
And I'll second that.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
You know, I forgot to ask Angela, do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay. There are no general information items and no first readings of ordinances or on today's agenda. We have a second reading and adoption of an ordinance on today's agenda. Item 23 is for a zoning code amendment. And I'll ask the city clerk to read the title, but first, Angela, are there any speaker cards for this item?
We have no speaker cards.
Then would you mind reciting the title?
And the title of the ordinance is an ordinance approving zoning code amendment number 2023-0001 for amendment of Title 17 of the El Cajon Municipal Code for economic development, housing, and other technical changes, revisions, and edits.
Looking for a motion?
So moved. Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, that brings us to closed session. The city attorney will recite the title and lead us into the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will be meeting in closed session on two items. The first is a conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Subdivision A of Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency's designated representative is the city manager, and the unrepresented employees are those listed under Policy A-29, generally the city executive management, unrepresented management, confidential, and unrepresented general classifications. The second item is a closed session for public employee performance evaluation of the city attorney.
Great, thank you. Make a motion then to adjourn to closed session. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go to closed session. We'll be back in a few minutes to continue the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from closed session. I'll hand it over to our city attorney to report on the happenings of closed session.
Thank you. The City Council met in closed session on 2 items. First was a conference with labor negotiators regarding unrepresented employees under policy A-29, as described previously, and gave direction to the city's representative. And then the City Council met in a closed session for my evaluation again, and it was performed.
Thank you. This brings us to the adjournment, the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 13th day of June 2023, is adjourned till Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.